The title of my message today is called "Why You Must Become a Conspiracy Theorist." And the reason why I decided to do this was because I wanted to just kind of say a couple of things. I have a lot of thoughts in my mind and a lot of ideas I want to share, but for the most part, though, it was like I wanted to just say a few things. Number one, well, the reason why you need to become a conspiracy theorist is because you have to look at the world that we're in. The world that we're in is not a normal, even keel kind of world where it's like, pretty much it's black and white. When I was a kid, I used to think that everything was just up front and you'd be able to talk to people and learn stuff, but then you had to kind of be very wise. Like you're playing a game of chess. And so with a game of chess, you know that if there are things against you, you have to think strategically. You got to think, okay, you know what? At the end of the day, I got to protect myself. Now, mostly, how I go about my day is that I believe good in people. I believe that there's a lot of good in people. I believe that people have, built into them, necessarily a good type thing where, they're wanting to help you. You want to be, reach out and be positive to each other. Something where you want to benefit and bless other people. So there's an aspect where, you want to just go out of your way and become a person that's going to help other people. But that's not what the reason why you want to become a conspiracy theorist is because, when you start seeing patterns together, right? You start looking at patterns of how things work. For example, you look at how to give an example, you look at some of the things, for example, that's out there right now. You kind of cautious about things that are being said. When you grew up in school, they always told you that the virus was not alive, and viruses were not alive. And so when they start talking about people start mentioning things called live viruses, you start wondering what in the world are you actually talking about? Because like if it's exactly what they're saying it is, if things are alive and things aren't alive, then which one is it? So you have to kind of start having to pick and choose between decisions. And whenever you pick and choose a decision, it starts going from one location to another. And eventually leads you to another path. Now, I know I've been kind of rambling, but I just want to get a couple of points. What some of the things that happened last year, they forced us to wear a mask. Okay, they told us that we should wear a mask. First, it was a not mandatory, but it was a suggestion, right? A suggestion. You start off with that, and then when it went from that, it went from a suggestion to a dress code thing at work, and then it became a human rights thing, and a definitely you're gonna kill grandma thing. And so they really went out of their way just to make sure that and try and mess with us, and to make sure that we are the kind of people that are going to just have to listen to what they're saying. So, who are they? The governments around the world bestowed upon us this whole thing about wearing masks. So, you look back to the name of it. I wore my fake one, my hypoxia mask, I called it. And what it was, the whole thing about it was that it was a type of mask that it wasn't real. It was a decoration. It wasn't the blue one because I simply cannot wear the blue ones. And so the blue ones I can't wear. Long story. There's too much of a long story to even go into detail about it. But for the most part, though, what I want to say is when you are placed in a situation where you look at all the details, you have a couple things you need to be mindful of. One, that though though it's like you have though you have all these different things. What I'm trying to say is this: you have it where you are faced with a lot of different opinions about stuff. A lot of different opinions. You have to deal and be able to look and rationalize. And I think it's really by the grace of God, honestly. A lot of stuff that I've been able to learn and pick up and been able to, by the grace of God, my wife and I have been able to survive through, had to do a lot with, I can't say coincidence, I'd say more or less like, it's like an intuition kind of a thing where you start looking at things and they start making sense. Now, I know I haven't made any sense yet of what I'm trying to say, but what I'm trying to build up to is that there are there are things out there that give you clues what they're trying to do. We watched a lot of movies, watched a lot of television, we've seen X Files, we've seen all these different shows. We watched a lot of movies, and when you watch a lot of movies in sequences and series, like you do a binge watching type thing, I don't know about the whole like Netflix and all that stuff because I feel like all the movies that they show is really kind of like a junky type stuff. But I mean, like when you watch like old movies and you binge watch like old series and like you can sit and watch Firefly, you sit and watch Firefly, or you'll sit and watch like a whole presentation of stuff. What ends up happening is that you end up having a whole mindset of get myself. I'm gonna go to the house. I'm gonna walk with you. You're gonna walk with me. So pretty much what we have is a whole mindset of like how to anticipate and find different patterns that are set before you. Three things I want to say. One was boycott works better than protests. Let me tell you, because boycotts where the businesses don't care so much about your protest, they'll just laugh it off. They will not laugh off your boycotts. All right, so if you boycott their products and tell all your friends not to do stuff, they will listen to those things. Next one is we need to fire all the politicians. The politicians are corrupted on so many levels. All they know is corruption, and so because of that, that's one of the things we can't necessarily just kind of allow to happen anymore. The ideas of the V's, VAXX, has always been skewered. Now, I'm gonna spend the remainder of the time on my way home talking about the whole thing about skewered information, how those things kind of work. For the most part, though, you have it where, if, for example, you're told that something is supposed to work effective, like, for example, I'll give you an example. I had this thing where I have lizards, right? I have lizards as pets. And I didn't know this, but there was a type of plant that I thought was a very beautiful tropical type plant. But what happened was that it was actually a poison type plant, And I didn't know it was, but I had it in the lizard cage. Anyway, so what happened was that when I put it in the lizard cage, it caused all the animals, all the lizards to die, And so because of that, I didn't know. I thought it was some kind of like infection or some kind of thing, or nematode or some kind of they sold me bad batch of lizards. But the truth of the matter was that inside the lizard cage was a plant called Dieffenbachia. And anybody knows Dieffenbachia, it looks very nice, like a green plant. It's almost like a, how can I describe it? It looks like a plant, shoelace. It looks like a plant, right? Where if you have, it looks like a plant that it's in the center of it's kind of yellow. So, for example, it's green on the outside, but it's yellow on the inside. And that with it being yellow, what it does is that it's a very toxic plant. It's high in I forget, oxalates or something. And what it causes inflammation, right? So if you were to drink from it, like a pitcher plant, and drink from it, it would cause you to feel a lot of pain. You would get inflammation, and so that inflammation could mimic that of a flu virus or a symptom or something like that, or something like that to effect where you're getting swollen or some kind of inflammation. But it was actually you're being poisoned, And so I didn't know that, but my lizards were in that cage. And this was back when I was a little kid. That was back when I was like, 10, 11 years old. And I had lizards for pets. I didn't know that the plant was a toxic plant. Till one day I was flipping through a book and I realized that it was a poison plant that killed my lizard cage. So from then on there, I began using like what's the word? Fake plants. Like fake plants to have it where the fake plants so that the lizards would not be, at risk of living plants that would kill them, as long as I knew for sure 100% that this plant was 100% okay for them to be around, like a lettuce or a microgreen or something, where it's good for them, that's not going to hurt them or cause them any physical injury. Anyway, long story, what happens is this. The whole thing about it has been that which they have talked to us over and over about how this contagion and the contagion myth and how this thing makes that person sick, but they forget to tell us that we are covered from head to toe in viruses and microbes and things like that. And you know what? There has to be a lot to play into it about the poison of the environment and how they have poisoned us for an entire year. They told us nothing but lies. The CDC has lied to us. The government has lied to us. They lied to us about the numbers. They lied to us about the numbers. They lied to us about the deaths. They lied to us about the cases. They lied to us about the PCR tests. They lied to us about, even the thing itself. They lied to us. They are isolating the V. They have it in Vero, which is not in a live situation. They've never done a contagion test. And even when they find, quote unquote, these things in the creatures, they never determine whether these things cause the illnesses that they're looking for in question. They have never been. And how can you determine if something is brand new if you don't have a sample of that thing, which is brand new there, to actually be able to talk to people and know, or be able to take a sample from and isolate? For example, if you have a lizard, right? If you have a lizard, and you say you have a brand new species of lizard, well then manifest this brand new species of lizard, If you have a species of lizard, you manifest it. What do? You get the one, you get the lizard, you bring it. Like they always say, show us Loch Ness, right? If you found a picture of Loch Ness Monster, present the Loch Ness Monster so we all can see Loch Ness. Well, I have this picture of Loch Ness. It's like, well, it's a possibility. There's a lot of sightings of it, but no one has been able to produce a creature, an egg, or anything like that. So we have a Loch Ness Monster, but we don't have the Loch Ness Monster, do we? What we do have is that we have a situation where something is being presented, and they call those cryptozoological creatures. cryptozoological creatures. Because at the end of the day, these creatures, like Bigfoot, even some of the ones they found in like Ogopogo, the Lake Champlain monster, all those creatures and stuff, all of those, as much as I want them to be real, there's no quote unquote scientific proof. Scientific proof includes that which is repeatable, that which is observable, that which is measurable, right? Scientific method. So when you don't have those categories of things that are observable, or repeatable, or measurable, then it doesn't fall into scientific category, because you can't recreate something you can't recreate. So if you have no, no infection, right, from a person who was supposed to have had this thing, and you give it to another person, they have the same infection, but you have a situation where maybe there's poison. Like, for example, in the lizard cage, I had the poison of the plant, the Dieffenbachia plant, was in there. And what it did was that it actually poisoned all my creatures, right? So, with it poisoned all my creatures, not knowing, thinking it was a nematode, which is like worm or type of some kind of microbe was killing these creatures, when in fact it was a plant that was killing the creatures. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we got to look at the thing that causes it, and they don't like to talk about causes. So this is one of the things that as a type of person who likes to look into patterns, if you play chess and you keep playing chess, you eventually learn there's patterns to the game. I mean, you learn the basic movement of each structure, like driving a car. You push on the pedal, push on the accelerator, the car will go forward. You push on the brake, the car will stop. You can't drive both of them at the same time. You take turns, and you have a combination of rights and lefts and signals and things like that, and backwards and forwards signals like that. Be able to maneuver and take the opportunity to travel and to drive and all that stuff, right? So there's a limited number of things you can do. But when you play like chess with people, and you're able to like play a game of chess, and you spend time with them, you can learn their patterns. So the more time you play chess against a person, eventually you learn their structure, because there's so many combinations to play in this game. But eventually they'll learn your structures too, and your abilities. What they have done for the last couple of years, they have learned us. They have learned our weaknesses. They've learned what we are afraid of. They've learned how to, in a sense, to farm us as people. They said this, right? That if you have a situation where it's like, if you have you teach a man, you give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day, right? If you teach a man how to fish, you'll feed him for his lifetime. But if you teach a man or society how to farm humans, you'll farm for generations. You'll be able to feed for generations. Now, I don't know about these lizard people stuff, but definitely one of the things that's very interesting about the whole thing with lizard people is that it's very possible that there are things that we have no idea what's about. The Bible, it talks about angels and demons, talks about fallen angels, talks about wicked angels, talked about those who are disembodied spirits, talked about how we're not supposed to consort with the dead. Now, one of the things is that these people who do any of these things that they do, all the elites, they consort with the dead. They have their bohemian groves and their witchcraft and their secret societies and all that stuff. And not only that, they also tell you about it. They put it out there, so you can be all well to do about it. You know what's going on. And so they're so brazen that they have to, in a sense, tell you. And by definition, them telling you, you become, used to it. You become, aware of it. And becoming aware of it makes you, not only aware of it, makes you, in a sense, grants them permission to continue in their madness, permission to continue in what they're doing. And it's not really madness, it's more like their hostile takeover. So, you have to worry about the atheists. Because atheists, they don't have, when you have the Satanists and the Luciferians, their things is that they want to take over the world. They want to be number one. They want to have the world as their ground, because they want to just pervert that which God has made, take it. Why you need to become a conspiracy theorist? Because the mainstream media is not telling you a straight story. What they are doing to you is that they're telling you a bunch of lies for you to fall into and believe, just so they can keep their agenda going. They'll tell you the story. They'll tell you flat out in stories. Because how else do we learn stuff? We learn stuff in stories. You know that? We learn things in stories. The best way that what we learn, the best way that we're able to put things together is through stories. We are storytelling type people. Now, the worst thing about life is that they use stories to blind us, but they also use stories to enlighten us. They'll drop hints, and you have to be aware of that. That they'll tell you what they're gonna do. They've been telling us what they're gonna do. They tell us like the movie's Contagion, and you have Outbreak, and you have all these different things about how they want to alien UFO stuff. It's all fanciful sci-fi. The reason why I always got into sci-fi because sci-fi they had a way of trying to get your brain all twisted, but then there's always some kind of human element to it. So there's a type of thing where you learn the human element. You learn about how important it is to know that they're working their plan. They're working their plan for their goals. And who are they? These are the people who want to rule this world. They're the ones who put the Georgia Guidestones up for people to see that they're going to let people know what they're doing. They're the ones. They'll do what they can. They'll do what it takes. And so what they do is that for the most part, though, they will figure out ways to deceive us. They'll figure out ways to deceive us. They'll figure out ways to make sure that we do exactly what they want to do by consent. They don't do anything without permission. Otherwise, they'd be stopped in their tracks. They have to get permission. And so it's important to be a conspiracy theorist because you know what? It makes you look at the world a different way. Now, take the information I'm giving you and just I'm going to do another video just to follow up because it's like, I feel there's a lot more I could say, more concise stuff that I can give to you. But for the most part, there's a lot of people out there that know and are awake. And so the more you are awake, the more you understand stuff, the better you are in terms of having to survive. Now, surviving means being able to look at what you have in front of you and to make wise decisions. Because the ones that are in power are not going to tell you the ways to beat them. It's like the chess game. If you play chess against people, they're not going to teach you how to beat them. They're going to teach you how to lose. So you have to learn how to win on your own. So how to learn and win, I can tell you stuff and how you can do it. But for the most part, though, by the grace of God, what you have to do, you have to be intuitive and look at the patterns that are set before you. One of the things about the left and the agenda that I've seen, their inability to see the outcome of their decisions. It's like I know if there is a cliff 10 steps away from here, if you go 9 steps and you stop, you won't fall in the cliff. But if you go 11 steps, you're definitely going to fall into that cliff. So my thought is this: you need to tell them or be wise about the situation. But most people they just keep thinking to go at 15 steps, they'll be fine. But you just said if you take 10 steps, you're gonna fall off this cliff. Anyway, long story short, I'm going to stop it here and just kind of like come back to you and later and tell you more stuff. But I just want to say you need to be a conspiracy theorist because as a conspiracy theorist, you get to see a world a little bit different. And that may be all it takes to save your life and for you to be able to save your family and provide for them. But remember, Noah was a conspiracy theorist. He was told something that never happened before, and that thing that never happened before saved his family's life. So that day was crazy, but God had told him to do something, and it was to save the whole world. But those people didn't listen to him. So you gotta be wise, ask God for wisdom, and just go from there. All right. Well, I'm gonna stop the video here, but I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I wish you all the best. God bless you. All right. Talk to you soon. Okay. Bye.